Lyra stood at the same corner of docking bay 14, just as she had done every morning for the last 500 days. Her legs were tired, her back ached, and the cold wind of Valora 7 brushed against her pale blue skin. But she did not move. She stood straight, gripping a small metal wristband in both hands, as if it were made of gold. The wristband was old, scratched at the edges, and engraved with two simple letters. EC. She looked down at it again, as she always did. Those two letters were the reason she woke up every morning. The reason she refused to give up. The reason she stood in the same place for 500 days, because Evan Cole, the human who had given her the wristband, had made a promise to come back. And Lyra believed promises should not be broken. The sky rumbled above her. Dark clouds gathered in the atmosphere, thick and heavy with static energy. People walking past pulled their cloaks closer. Robots hovered by with weather alerts flickering on their screens. Merchants rushed to cover their stalls, afraid of a storm. But Lyra did not move. She just whispered to herself in a soft, determined voice, "Maybe today." The people of Valora 7 were used to seeing her by now. Some ignored her completely. Others shook their heads and muttered that she was wasting her time. A few were kind enough to offer her food or a blanket, but no one truly understood. Many thought she was just a poor alien girl waiting for a ride that would never come. Some believed she had lost her mind. Others said she was only pretending to wait, hoping someone would feel sorry for her and give her money. But none of that mattered to Lyra. She did not wait for pity. She waited for Evan. Her memories of that day 500 days ago were still bright, like a picture burned into her heart. Valora 7 had been hit by a sudden plasma storm. It came without warning, roaring through the marketplace with blinding light and violent winds. Lyra had been much smaller then, barely strong enough to lift a food crate. She had been running across the market floor trying to help her mother pack their stall when the storm struck. The ground shook as a metal beam snapped from the roof above and came crashing down. She did not have time to move. She closed her eyes, thinking that was the end, but it wasn't. A strong pair of arms had wrapped around her and pulled her out of the way. The beam smashed into the ground where she had stood a moment ago. The sound had been so loud it rang in her ears. She had opened her eyes and seen a human, tall, messy-haired, and breathing hard. He had looked down at her and grinned. Still alive? Good. Let's stay that way. His name was Evan Cole, a human engineer who had landed on Valora 7 because his ship had broken down during travel. He had been on his way to another system, hoping to fix damaged satellites when he was forced to stop here. He had come to the marketplace to buy spare parts, and ended up saving her instead. She remembered how he had joked even while carrying her under the remains of a broken stall. "I guess this is what I get for buying cheap tools. Almost died buying screws." He had patched up the cut on her arm with a cloth torn from his own sleeve. He had shared his emergency food pack with her while they waited for the storm to settle. She had never tasted human rations before. They were dry and tasteless, but she had smiled anyway because he had handed it to her with such care. They had sat together under a collapsed metal roof, hiding from the plasma winds. She remembered how calm his voice had been, even when the world outside sounded like it was tearing apart. "Scared?" Evan had asked. She had nodded. "Me too," he had said. "But if we're scared together, it's not so bad, right?" She had never forgotten those words. When the rescue crew finally arrived to escort survivors to safety, Evan had been called away. Lyra had grabbed his arm in panic. She had not wanted him to go. She did not know why. Maybe because she had never met someone like him. Maybe because he had treated her like she mattered. "Will you come back?" she had asked in a trembling voice. Evan had paused. He had looked at her. Really looked at her like he understood what she needed. "I will," he had said. "Right here. Dock 14. I'll come back." She had frowned, unsure if she should believe him. He had gently taken off the wristband on his arm, a silver band with tiny engravings. "Take this. It means I gave you my promise." She had clutched the band close to her chest. "Will you really come back?" He had smiled, warm and certain. "I'm human. We keep our word." His words had been simple, but simple words could be powerful. And those words had changed her. He had left after that. The rescue crew pulled him away. She had watched him go with tears in her eyes. The next morning she had gone to docking bay 14. He was not there. The second morning she had gone again. He was not there. On the third day she had stood longer. On the fourth she had stayed until night. On the fifth, she had refused to leave even when her mother begged her to return home. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. People told her to stop. They said humans were liars. They said she was a fool to wait. They said he had forgotten her. They said he was probably dead. But Lyra did not believe any of it. She believed in him. Now 500 days had passed. The sky above her crackled with electric light. The storm was coming again. Winds picked up, sweeping dust across the bay. People ran for cover. Flying drones retreated to shelters. Security guards shouted warnings to clear the area. But Lyra stood still. She remembered the first storm. She remembered the moment he saved her. She remembered his voice. She tightened her grip on the wristband and whispered, "You kept me safe once. I'll keep your promise safe now." A nearby guard approached her. He was tall and wore a blue helmet that covered his eyes. "Girl, you need to get inside. The storm will hit soon." "I will stay," Lyra said calmly. "It is dangerous," the guard insisted. "I know." "Then why stay?" "Because he will come," Lyra replied. The guard sighed. He had seen her many times. He knew arguing was pointless. He walked away. The storm broke open above them with a loud crack. Purple lightning streaked across the sky. The ground shook. Digital screens flickered as electromagnetic waves burst through the station. People ran faster. Doors sealed. Alarms rang. The wind howled like a living creature. Lyra's clothes whipped around her. Rain began to fall, sharp like needles. She closed her eyes but stood firm. Her heart pounded in her chest. She had waited so long, but now for the first time she truly felt like today might be the day. She heard a sound, a deep rumble unlike thunder. It was mechanical. Engines. She opened her eyes. High above the clouds, cutting through the storm like a wounded bird, was a spaceship. Not a modern Velaran ship. No. Its body was rugged, scratched, old, human-made. Her breath caught. The ship struggled, shaking as plasma winds struck it from below. Its thrusters flared, trying to stay steady. It was coming down, directly toward Docking Bay 14. People screamed and ran. The ship looked like it might crash. But Lyra did not move. Her eyes were locked on it. The ship descended, slower now. Flames burst from its landing gear as it touched the metal ground. It tilted dangerously, sparks flying. For a moment it seemed like it would topple. Then, it settled. Smoke poured from its vents. Lights flickered weakly. The bay was silent except for the storm. Lyra did not breathe. The ship hatch hissed. A long pause followed. Then slowly it opened. A figure stepped out. He was taller than she remembered. His beard was rough. His hair was longer. His clothes were torn. He walked with a limp. But his eyes were the same. Evan Cole stood there staring at the corner where she stood. Lyra felt her legs move before she even realized it. She ran. She ran faster than she had ever run in her life. Her feet splashed through puddles. Her heart burned in her chest. But she did not stop. Evan took one step forward. Then another. His lips parted. His voice cracked with exhaustion. "Told you," he said softly. She crashed into him, throwing her arms around him, tears streaming down her face. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her tightly, even though his body was weak. "I'd come back." The storm raged around them, but Lyra barely noticed. All that mattered was that Evan was here, standing before her, tired, battered, and yet alive. She could feel his heartbeat through his chest as she clung to him, and it brought her a strange kind of warmth she hadn't felt in over 500 days. She looked up into his eyes, searching for even the smallest hint that he had forgotten, that he had abandoned his promise. But there was nothing there. Only the same kindness, the same determination that had saved her that first day. "Lyra," Evan said, his voice hoarse but steady. You waited. I always knew you would come back," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. "I never doubted you." He gave a weak laugh, shaking his head in disbelief. 500 days. I can't believe you actually stayed." "I told you," she said with a small smile. "Humans keep their promises, and aliens do too." Evan tried to stand straighter, but the storm and exhaustion weighed him down. Lyra released him for a moment and looked him over. He was dirty, his uniform torn, his face scratched from the long journey through hostile systems and pirate attacks. The sight of him fighting through all that danger just to return for her made her chest ache. She felt pride, relief, and joy all at once. "Do you want to get out of this storm?" she asked. "I know a place nearby. My home is safe. You can rest there." Evan nodded, grateful for the suggestion. Together they began to move. Every step was a struggle. The rain pelted them, lightning flashed, and the storm screamed like a wild creature. But Lyra held on to Evan's hand, steadying him as they walked. As they passed the stunned crowd, people stared in awe. A human had returned after nearly a year and a half through storms, dangers, and unknown perils, to fulfill a promise made to an alien child. Whispers spread through Docking Bay 14. It's him, the one she waited for. The human who came back. Children ran after them, pointing excitedly. Merchants paused their work, staring at the scene. Even security drones hovered silently, recording everything. The story of Lyra and Evan was becoming legend in real time. They arrived at Lyra's small home, a modest structure built from silver-hued stone and reinforced glass. Inside it was warm, the air filled with the faint scent of herbs and sweet alien fruits. Lyra led Evan to a low, cushioned bench near a small hearth where she had stored blankets. "Sit," she said softly, handing him a warm cloak. "You must be exhausted." Evan sank onto the bench, every muscle in his body protesting. He accepted the cloak, wrapping it around himself, and exhaled a long, shaky breath. Lyra sat beside him, careful to give him space, though she could feel the lingering tension in his body, the way he had fought so hard just to be here. How did you find me?" Lyra asked, curiosity mixed with awe. Evan smiled faintly. "You told me where you would be. Docking Bay 14, I didn't forget. I had to get back here no matter what. The universe. It tried to stop me at every turn. Pirates, storms, mechanical failures, even hostile patrols. But I kept thinking, if I don't make it, I'll regret it forever. I promised you. And promises are important." Lyra's heart swelled. She reached out and gently held his hand. "You're here. That's all that matters." For a long moment they sat in silence, listening to the storm outside. Then Evan slowly pulled the wristband from his pocket, the one he had left with her 500 days ago, and held it up. It glinted in the dim light. "You kept it?" he asked, almost incredulous. Lyra nodded. "Every day. It reminded me of the promise." Evan reached over and touched it, his fingers brushing hers. The simple contact was enough to send a warmth through both of them, deeper than either had expected. It was more than a wristband. It was a symbol, a bridge between two worlds, between a human and an alien who had learned to trust him completely. The storm began to die down outside. Clouds parted slightly, revealing a pale orange glow of sunlight breaking through. It was as if the universe itself was acknowledging this moment, the reunion of two beings who had refused to give up on one another. Evan stood slowly, still unsteady, and looked around Lyra's home. This is your place?" "Yes," she said softly. "It's small but safe. I wanted to be ready if you ever returned. I never stopped hoping." He walked closer to her, still limping slightly, and crouched in front of her. "I can't believe you stayed. 500 days. You could have gone anywhere, done anything." "I stayed because of you," Lyra said simply. "Because of your promise." "That's enough reason." Evan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. He handed it to her. I kept this too." Lyra unfolded it carefully. It was a sketch he had made the day they first met. A simple drawing of them standing together, under a small tree that had been at the edge of the marketplace.
He had written a note. "Dock 14, come rain or storm."
Promise kept. Tears pricked Lyra's eyes. You really remembered?" "I never forgot," Evan said. Not for a second. The warmth between them grew, an invisible thread connecting two hearts across species and worlds. Time seemed to stand still. Outside, the storm had passed completely. The sun now shone brightly on Valora 7, reflecting off metal roofs and glass panels. The world felt suddenly quiet, peaceful, like it had been waiting for this moment too. As evening approached, Evan and Lyra sat together, sharing food and stories. Evan spoke of his journey, the dangers, the near misses, the pirates, and the storms he had endured. Lyra listened, fascinated and horrified at the same time, marveling at the lengths a human would go to keep a promise. She shared her life too, the days she had spent waiting, the people who doubted her, the moments of loneliness and hope. By nightfall, the room was filled with laughter. For the first time in over 500 days, Lyra felt truly at peace. She realized that waiting had not been wasted. Every day, every tear, every second of doubt had led to this moment, the reunion of two souls across the universe. The next day, the news of Evan's return spread like wildfire across Valora 7. Citizens came to Docking Bay 14 to see the human who had kept his promise. Children ran to Lyra, wanting to touch the wristband that had waited so long. Merchants offered gifts, and even some government officials approached, curious to hear the story firsthand. Lyra and Evan walked together through the crowd, hand in hand. For the first time, she was not alone. She felt proud, not just for herself, but for humanity. Humans had a reputation for recklessness, for self-interest, for chaos. But Evan had shown her another side: loyalty, courage, honor, the kind of traits that could inspire even the most skeptical alien hearts. They returned to Lyra's home later that evening, exhausted but happy. As they settled down, Evan looked at her seriously. "Lyra, I know I've been gone a long time, but now that I'm back, I want to stay. I want to help you. I want to make sure you're safe always." Lyra's amber eyes shone. She felt a happiness she had never imagined. I want that too. But you've already risked so much to get here. You need rest." "I'll rest," he said with a smile. "But I also want to do more. I want to show you my world. And maybe let you see the human world too." Over the next few days, Evan and Lyra explored the planet together. She showed him her favorite hidden places: quiet gardens where rare plants grew, secret markets where spices from distant worlds could be found, and tiny cliffs overlooking oceans that shimmered with bioluminescent waves at night. Evan shared his knowledge too, teaching her simple engineering tricks, stories of human history, and tales of distant stars she had never seen. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day. The legend of the girl who waited and the human who returned spread across Valora 7. It inspired others, aliens and humans alike, to form friendships, alliances, and even partnerships that transcended species and culture. Lyra and Evan had not only kept a promise to each other, but had sparked a movement that showed the galaxy that loyalty, trust, and courage could bridge any divide. Weeks passed, and the wristband no longer felt like a symbol of waiting. It was now a symbol of connection, trust, and the extraordinary power of a promise kept. Lyra had waited 500 days for Evan, and he had come. And now together, they could face any storm, any challenge, and any obstacle the universe threw at them. Standing once again at Docking Bay 14, Lyra looked out at the horizon, hand in hand with Evan. Ships passed by, citizens went about their lives, and the planet of Valora 7 continued its busy rhythm. But she felt calm, stronger than she ever had. She had waited, and now she was no longer alone. She had a friend, a protector, and a human who had proven that promises were not empty words. Evan looked at her and smiled. "You believed in me, even when the odds were impossible." "I had no choice," Lyra said softly. "Some promises are worth waiting for, no matter how long it takes." He nodded, squeezing her hand. "Then let's face the future together, no matter what comes next." For the first time in over 500 days, Lyra did not look at the empty corner of Docking Bay 14. She did not wait for someone to arrive. She was already where she needed to be, with the human who had returned, keeping a promise that had changed both their lives forever. And so, under the twin suns of Valora 7, they began their journey together, a human and an alien, two worlds united by trust, courage, and the extraordinary bond of a promise kept.